Uh, Akhilesh, once again, welcome back and thanks once again for taking a session for us on Gyan Jyoti.
It's always been a pleasure to take a session, and it's my privilege that you gave me another opportunity to do this, and I will be always grateful for that.
So thank you so much. So Akhilesh, over to you. We can start the
Yes.
session.
Namaskar and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to one more session of immersion into the deep ocean of knowingness. Welcome to Gyan Jyoti. Today, we will make sense of the most fleeting resource that we encounter on a daily basis. And that fleeting resource is called time. In folklore, time is compared to a snake that is fleeting and slippery. Like snake, time also is fleeting and slippery, and we never come to know where it is gone. Let us understand how time structure makes one's life easy or difficult at workplace. Today's session is to understand how we can manage time at workplace to become more efficient, productive, and create joy for everyone who is working with us. As usual, I'll take help of a presentation, and I'll be sharing that presentation on screen right now. Is the share screening working for everyone?
Yeah, it's visible.
Now, does this picture give a familiar feeling? Do we feel every day in the morning when we wake up like this man inside the time clock? Does it look like an everyday routine? Do we feel trapped within the time constraints of workplace? Would we like to break free from the shackles of the time constraints? How would we feel if we would get a tool to manage time in such a way that we can mold the time as per the way we wish and according to our needs? Probably we can even create time out of 24 hours that are given to everyone in a standard manner. Do you think it is possible to create time? Let's look into the ahead slides and see if it is possible or not. And do we master time or time masters us? Let's deep dive into time structuring. As in this slide, we see that we are always working in teams, whether we are at home or at workplace. We are continuously interacting with our team members, family members, or any other group. That group may be of professionals, it may be of friends, it may be of any other third party. While such interactions are happening, we structure our time according to the modalities that are given on your screen. These modalities are withdrawal, rituals, pastimes, activities, games, and intimacy. We always have to remember that each second of our life, we are engaging in one of these modes or the other, depending on how much psychological risk are we willing to take. By psychological risk, we mean when we interact with the other person, we are always facing a risk of acceptance or rejection. And depending upon our capacity to face acceptance and rejection, we will indulge in all these 6 modalities and structure our time accordingly. Let's go into each one of them in detail and understand how well or poorly we are doing on these 6 scales. and what we like to do the most or do not like to do the most, where our likes and dislikes lie. But before we venture into understanding the 6 modes, we will have to understand a few more concepts. And the first concept that we need to understand is structure hunger. Structure hunger is that we may or may not have been aware whether this structure hunger occurs or do not occur, because we are so involved in our daily routine that this hunger eludes us when we are completely engrossed and engaged in our daily work. Now, let us imagine if all the objects that define structure in our lives are taken away from us, like the clock, the workplace, the home, the roads that are familiar to you, the marketplace, etc. Everything is taken away from you. And then suddenly we shall feel lost. How will we operate when we are given such a scenario? Similarly, when we open our eyes every day in the morning, each day is like an open and blank canvas where it is up to us how do we define our structure. Like it is written here, at workplace, every new day is an open day waiting to be structured. There is an example of a great sailor who once arrived on a deserted island and was supposed to live there alone for at least 6 months to 1 year. And he had no clue whom to interact with and whom not to, because he had no understanding of that place or culture. He decided to create his own time structure by seeing how sun moves from east to west and how the direction of sun changes in the sky during the day. While doing this, he created his own structure. This shows that when we are given into a situation where the structure is not there, we shall indulge and create our own structures so that we can operate and function to our best and optimum quality. Another concept that we need to understand is that of psychological risk. As we saw that we are moving in degrees from withdrawal to intimacy in the above slide. As we move from withdrawal to ritual, ritual to pastime, pastime to activity, activity to games, and games to intimacy, we will see the psychological risk involved keeps on increasing. In intimacy, the psychological risk involved is the highest, and in withdrawal, the psychological risk involved is the lowest. At the same time, unpredictability of psychological risk also tends to increase from withdrawal to intimacy. Now let's assume each modality and see how modalities work, how do we structure our days around it, and what is the psychological risk that we are willing to take or not willing to take, as well as how it will fill our structure hunger during the day. Let's start with withdrawal. When a person withdraws, that person may stay with the team physically, but shall not interact with the group members. How many times we have been in team meeting and lost engagement with the team meeting or with the instructions that are being carried out in the team. We may go into our own daydreaming world, withdrawn, not willing to participate. How many times it happens that we do not wish to come and and participate in any engagement activity, where we want to stay withdrawn, where we are fearing to take any kind of risk because we will be judged for our performance. We do this because we do not want to undertake any degree of psychological risk. Because during withdrawal, the only interaction that I can do is with myself. I do not want to engage with the world. And when the only interaction that I want to do is with myself, I will always have least risk taken. And thus, with the least risk comes the least reward as well. Engagement only with self in a withdrawn way is not going to be a very rewarding activity. It is going to take some rewards away from you at workplace as well as in your personal life. But it is not always about the fear of participation or risk of rejection. Sometimes withdrawal can be a rational adult decision where you need time to relax, to think about things that you are supposed to be doing, to be alone and rejuvenate, to meditate, to see how things are being planned in your life, what kind of planning you are undertaking to make the optimum out of your living decisions. You want to connect to the inner being, the individual and the human that you are at that time. When withdrawal happens through such a state, this may not be about the risk-taking factor, but more about a decision where you want to come out as a better human being to interact and engage with other people in a far better manner than what you were doing. So withdrawal has a positive quality also. Like everything that we will see, all six modalities will have a positive as well as a negative quality. It depends completely on us. How do we use these six modalities to make our day and time fruitful for ourselves and everyone at workplace as well as in our professional and family groups. As we said, that withdrawal can lead us to go into a fantasy world. It takes us away from the reality of the here and now. It takes us away from the decision-making responsibility that we have to undertake while we are doing an activity. And we all are guilty of doing this, so nothing to worry. And from time to time, we all engage in withdrawal. But what we have to see is how much time do we engage in withdrawal during 24 hours. If the time of withdrawal is high, we will have to re-evaluate and sense and see whether I'm risk averse towards my psychology or I need more time to rejuvenate and become activated and fully engaged with the world. Whatever it may be, we have to be aware about it and rework according to the outcome that we need during the day to assess it and to assimilate these concepts to make it a more productive and holistic day for self. Namaskar. Hello, good morning, good evening. We hear these terms multiple times in a day at different times and with different people. Welcome to the world of rituals. Rituals is the second mode of time structuring. We all learn these rituals from childhood. Everyone teaches us these rituals in any culture or be it at any organization. We all learn rituals which are appropriate to the organizational culture in which we are participating, whether professional or personal. Rituals can vary from simple good morning to annual general meetings at your organization, which are held every year. Or it can be a simple employee engagement activity like a birthday party, which is done on a ritualistic basis for every employee. All these points where time is structured around these rituals is also be taken into cognizance of. Here, the degree of psychological risk is higher. Sometimes organizations may design their own rituals to improve the energy levels and efficiency of the organization. For example, recital of Manan Sadhana is an everyday ritual at many of the transorganization believers' place. These rituals energize the environment with positive energy and right intent to infuse currents which lead to achievement of objectives and goals through a purpose. Rituals can create a purpose-driven organization. These rituals may look pretty simple, but if they are connected to the purpose, they can drive organizations to such high levels that we cannot imagine. Functionally, rituals are usually performed to adapt. Each one of us, whenever we enter a workplace culture, adaptation begins. And the first point of adaptations are according to the rituals present in the organization. And as was said previously, that rituals will involve more risk than withdrawal. Let's assume a scenario where someone greets another person, but the another person doesn't greet the previous person back. It looks like a rejection because you take the risk of greeting the person first. And since the risk of rejection in a ritual is higher than withdrawal, that's why ritual becomes the second modality of time structuring. The third modality is pastime. This is one of the most interesting modalities of the six that we are going to learn. When we reflect over past, when we talk about the past, when we are thinking about the past or brooding about the past, usually engaging in some kind of talk with other people, this is called pastime. But one thing is very important to learn here. And that thing is that while doing pastime, though we engage in a lot of conversation, but we are not willing to take any action with respect to that conversation. It is going to remain only in our head and talk and not transform into any activity. When we reflect over past, either we are criticizing a situation, a person or self with no intent or to take any action to rectify. At workplace, pastime is about informal gossip, which is leading neither the team nor the individual to gain anything. Let's take an example. Suppose India happens to lose a match against Australia and we are busy, and to discuss about batting technique flaws of Virat Kohli is a pastime, as no one of us can do anything about it, but it satisfies the psychological hunger of the individual and the group to talk about a person whom they are in awe of. Specific genders may indulge in different types of pastimes. Men may prefer politics and women may prefer fashion. Similarly, parents may prefer to either aggrandize or criticize their children with respect to their performances as per the parental standards. But one thing is to be remembered about pastimes, that they are not going to yield us anything. They may involve a higher psychological risk than rituals, but ultimately it doesn't lead to any productive activity. So similarly, here we can see that compared to rituals are higher, but there is no productivity out of such kind of engagement. Like, for example, how does we have to ask a question here that how pastime involves more psychological risk than a ritual. Let's assume a team is having a pastime discussion on world politics. Counter views on world politics can ignite or flare up passions that may go out of control, and thus you are taking more risk. Thus, we have to be very sure that when we are engaging in pastime, which group we are in, what is the quality of pastime that we are doing? Are we aware that we are not going to take any action with respect to the talks that we are making? Is this going to be an informal gossip that leads us to nowhere? This awareness itself will bring out more quality into pastime if that may be needed as part of refreshment. Now let's take up the fourth modality called the activity. This is the most important modality which people need to imbibe at workplace because this is directly related to the goal achievement. Goal achievement at workplaces are critical. Activity is the most important of the modes that we need to master while being at workplace. To set clear objectives and standards of activity are a perennial force that would lead us to success at individual level and organizational level. As written in the slide, people are directing their energy towards some material outcome, an outcome that is tangible, measurable, and accessible to everybody, and everybody benefits out of it. The most important thing to understand and make benefit out of activity is that we have to understand that it is coming out of an adult state. By adult state, we mean that we are utilizing all the resources that are available to us and we are in the here and now. By here and now, we have to understand that we are not talking about the past, we are not discussing about the future, but we are completely focused on the task at hand that is given to us, the objectives of the day that are to be fulfilled and completed, and moving inch by inch towards the goals and objectives that organization has decided for us or we have decided for us individually. Adhering to rules that allow functionality at workplace is very effective way to plan your activity mode. Sometimes we feel that rules are there to cut us or to give us some kind of draconian law, but that is not always true. Certain rules make activity functional, and certain rules are important for objectives to be achieved as long as they do not become draconian. Mastering the here and now and being aware of the environment in which this here and now has to be applied or is going to be played out is pivotal to understand this mode. We all, as dedicated professionals, have to see how much time in my 24 hours clock day we are engaging into hardcore activities. Dedicated professionals need to have this awareness and understanding. Now let's understand how activities create psychological risk. Activities create psychological risk from the medium of feedback. Feedback are usually given at the end of the job, either well done or poorly done. It determines the quality that we have to give in order to be successful at the workplace. So while delivering quality work or quality presentation or making a client interaction or negotiation, everything and every time a feedback is getting generated continuously when activity mode is on. Because of this continuous feedback generation, activities have higher risk than pastimes and rituals and withdrawals also. But in spite of these risks, we all have to take this risk and get better and better at activities so that we accomplish what we are here to do as dedicated professionals. The less said about our dedication, the more said about our dedication towards activity, the better it is, because this is pivotal or critical to success. The next time structuring mode is games. We all play games from time to time, but we need to understand what games are. Games are when we are trying to solve a problem from a childhood strategy. Childhood strategies do not work at adult here and now, resource-driven, process-driven areas. Because if we are going to solve problem at workplace through childhood strategies, we are going to land in trouble. For example, let's assume if there is a machine breakdown and a childhood strategy is of laziness, that somebody else will fix the machine. It is not going to help solve the problem, but an adult sensing of urgency will surely help overcome the trouble. But sometimes we all have tendency to indulge in our childhood strategies, which are no longer appropriate to us as grown-ups. The worst part of being involved in a game time structuring is that all the parties who are playing games or all the people who are interacting, they both feel bad about why they got into such kind of transaction. Because this is one of the most unproductive transactions that can happen. To understand and differentiate how games are different from activity and all other 6 modalities, we have to take a look at this example. In this example, we can see that 2 people are trying to interact with each other. But here, the social message and the psychological message look very different. In this slide, SM is an abbreviation for social message and PM is an abbreviation for psychological message. The group interaction or the interaction between 2 individuals goes like this. On social level, it is said, the black shirt looks awful on you. But on the psychological level, what is supposed to be said or what is meant to be said is, you always dress shabbily. Games are usually played to put others down and discount other person's ability with respect to the task. We should avoid playing games at all costs because games can be costly. And if it is in our awareness, only then we can come out of the game's drama. We can break the drama of the games and focus more on activity, which yields more positive results for all the team members as well as the individuals. The last but not the least of the modalities of time structuring is intimacy. Unlike games, in intimacy, there are no secret messages. The most important thing that we have to remember that the social level and psychological level messages are congruent. They are not different. They are not ulterior. They are given and said as they are meant to be said. This differentiates intimacy and games. But what we have to remember that intimacy carries the highest psychological risk. This congruency of psychological and social messages create the highest risk possible. Can we have intimacy at workplace? Yes, it is possible. Imagine how good we feel when we work together as a team, help out a co-worker to resolve the problem, or get engaged as a team to serve the believers, or have a fun activity at a birthday celebration. This camaraderie, bond, and intimacy produces a culture that is impossible to replicate. As we move ahead in time, businesses and organizations are going to create intimate workplace cultures, which are often going to be difficult to replicate and are going to create competitive advantage over businesses who are not going to create this kind of culture. But there is a key to intimacy. It is not everyone's cup of tea, because in a game, each person shifts the responsibility for the outcome to the other. But in intimacy, each accepts his own responsibility. If we want to create a culture of intimacy at workplace, we have to accept our own responsibility with regards to what we think, what we feel, how do we behave, and ultimately what our output is towards our organization and to ourselves. As we have gone through from withdrawal to intimacy, now what we will do is do some kind of practical application. And this practical application can be done through an activity. If we have our pens and papers ready, then we can be doing this activity right here, right now. Or if we do not have our pens and paper ready, then we can just understand the activity and do it at our leisure time at home. It depends upon how do we feel around these 6 concepts right now. And there is no hard and fast rule to do it right now. We can do it at our leisure activity in the evening when we are in the comfort of our homes. Let's see what those activities are. This activity involves making a time structuring pie chart. And how do we make this pie chart? We just draw a circle and divide the circle into slices. Each slice will be called withdrawal, ritual, pastime, activity, games, and intimacy. Once we are done doing that, what we are going to do is to identify how much time each day of 24 hours we are spending on each of these 6 modalities. A time structuring pie chart will look something like this, that is visible on your screen right now. What we can do is we can create an as is time structuring pie chart that is happening today, as of now. And what we can create in future, or what kind of daily outcome and psychological risk we want to take in future, we can create an activity pie chart, or we can create a time structuring pie chart according to that as well. What I want now, what I'm doing now, and what I want it to be will have some difference. And that difference and gap has to be fulfilled. Each time structure pie chart helps you to reveal about yourself and your workplace activity, about what you are going to do tomorrow, what are you going to do now, and what are you going to do in future. This also gives you a tool to improve yourself and become a better version of yourself, as well as utilize your time in the most appropriate manner. But how are you going to eliminate the difference between what your current time structuring pie chart is and what you want it to be? It is given in this activity slide, where you are seeing that you can list down at least 5 ways in which you will increase the amount of time structure you most want to increase. By this, we mean that if you want to increase the time of activity by 2 hours, then you write at least 5 behaviors that will allow you to do that. Or if you want to increase the time spent on intimacy by 3 hours, then you will write behaviors for such a scenario. Then in the coming week, you carry out these behaviors as written along with the pie chart. As you have written them down, you carry out those behaviors in your actual life as an example of living, as a living example. After 1 week, when you redraw your time structuring pie, you will see that you have achieved what you wanted to achieve when you were drawing for what you want as an objective. And if you have not, then obviously you can continue to work on these behaviors so that you achieve your goals, which have been revealed through your time structuring pie chart. We have to be alert each day how we structure our time, and we allow others to structure our time as well. Analyze time structuring during meetings, work, conversation with neighbors, at parties, or wherever you are, and figure out in which kind of 6 modalities you are present in that moment. So let's stop wasting time, create more time for ourselves, make more time possible for our activities and goals to be fulfilled professionally and personally, and bring more joy to our profession as well as personal lives. Thank you very much for giving your time and listening to me through this presentation. And I'm open for questions right now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if anybody has a question, they can raise their hand.
If anybody has a question to how to do this activity, then also I'm willing to answer. Or any question with respect to concept which was not understood, then we can go back and understand that as well.
Akhilesh, I think in one of the slides you've mentioned unpredictability of the degree. Yeah. If you can explain a bit more on that, maybe that will be helpful.
So let me go back to that slide. So unpredictability of psychological risk is basically when you are interacting with the other person, how he will respond to your query. He can respond to your query in a very aggressive manner, in a polite manner, or in a reasonable manner. I don't know what is he going to do. Whether it is about pastime, whether we are engaged in activity, whether it is a ritual. Like I gave an example that I can just say hello to everybody and nobody responds to me. It looks very cruel at that time. You know, so that is, and I do not, I am taking a risk. It is very unpredictable whether it is going to respond to me in the way what my expectations are. So unpredictability is with respect to the degree, how intense that risk may turn out to be. There is a question here, how to implement 2R in a specific mode of time structure. So Shubham, first you have to make the time structure as is. That means you have to make your time structure around these 6 modalities as you are doing now. That's the first step. Once you are completed with that first step, then you have to understand in which of these modalities you want to increase your time by 2 hours. When you have identified that, after that identification, you have to write 5 behavioral changes that you will bring in your life so that those 2 hours are gained in that specific modality. Am I clear, Shubham? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the response. So again, I am repeating. First, you have to make the time structure pie as it is as of today. Then you have to see which modality you want to improve upon and increase time in. Third, you have to write 5 behavioral shifts that you will make to increase the to change the modality, to change the behavior in the modality. And the fourth point is that you will start living it out during the week, and then redraw your time structure after week 8 to see whether that happened or not. I hope I'm clear, Shubham. Okay, Shubham is asking, what if the 5 behavior doesn't change the actual result? Then Shubham, that means I have not found the correct behavioral shift that needs to be done. I have not found that. I will have to rework on the behavioral shifts and figure it out whether if these behavioral shifts have not given you the appropriate result, then I have to rewrite them, which will lead you to ultimate result. Yeah. Any other question?
I think there's a question from Nakul. I'll just ask him. Unmute.
Nakul, can you just unmute and ask the question? Nakul, are you there? Nakul, can you unmute and ask it?
I think he's not able to unmute.
Can you type it, Nakul, like Shubham has put it on the chat? Yeah. Okay. Manoj sir is asking one question. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Hello. Hi.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. Just a different word, different question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any techniques about time compression?
Time compression?
Yeah. That is eventually we will have to lead into that path.
See, by compression means you want to restrict your time on a particular activity.
I don't, I've heard about it very briefly. I just wanted to know whether you have any ideas on what can be done about time compression.
See, first I need to understand what do you mean by time compression. Do you mean that you want to restrict one of your faculties towards a particular engagement in that particular time, or you want time to reduce itself?
See, basically, eventually this time compression or anything is basically you will have to stretch your time. You have 24 hours. Right. So how do we compress? I know there's a technique available. I heard somewhere. I'm not too very sure. But yes, since we are talking about time, I wanted to ask whether you could throw some light on that.
Yes, we have techniques to expand time and we have techniques to compress time.
Yes.
But for that, you will have to understand how time is related to the mind. And that was not the topic of this presentation.
Yes.
But nevertheless,
I did say I'm slightly digressing from the topic right at the beginning itself.
Yeah, nevertheless, but that's okay. See, you have to understand that time compresses and expands itself according to the pleasure that mind is receiving. For example, if I am waiting for a loved one to come and I am waiting and waiting and waiting, 10 minutes look or feel like 1 hour. Okay. 10 minutes feel like 1 hour, even though 10 minutes have passed, but psychologically you will feel that 1 hour has passed.
Okay.
Okay. At the same time, when you are in a pressure situation, in an extreme pressure situation, 1 minute will feel like again 1 hour. Similarly. But when actually you are, say, watching your favorite movie, or you are with your favorite person talking, chatting, or doing some of your favorite activities together, like playing a game of cricket together if you like cricket, then whole day, 12 hours, you don't know where they go. They feel like 12 seconds. It is as fleeting as that. So time expands and compresses itself according to the psychological pleasure that you are deriving out of the engagement that you are in. Okay. Now, to understand whether we can compress or expand time with respect to an activity we are doing. You must have heard this statement commentators make that Sachin Tendulkar has more time to play a shot than any other batsman. I'm sure if you have seen cricket anytime, you must have heard this statement many times. Or any great batsman has more time to play a shot than any other normal batsman. Now, why that happens? That happens because as you keep on practicing the same thing over and over and over again, your mind can make the anticipation much faster than a person who has not practiced so much. And because your mind anticipates that faster than the other person, it seems like, it feels like you have more time on hand to do a particular thing, but the actual time passed is the same thing. So time compression activities can happen in meditation, it can happen in intense engagement, and it can happen through intense practices. Somebody is going to make some art perfect. If that, okay, if that helps your answer, and we can have a separate discussion on that at a psychological level.
Yeah, fine, I'll do that. Thank you.
Satya Mohan Selvaraju, how to understand the level of psychological risk which we can risk while we try to change the behavioral pattern. Okay. First, Satya, we have to understand that, as I told, that psychological risk is basically the intensity of the degree that you are willing to risk yourself. So, for example, it can be a reasonable risk. It can be a risk where you can hurt yourself badly. For example, you propose a person and the person rejects your proposal. It can hurt people psychologically very badly. And or it can be an absolutely no risk thing where you are just withdrawn and engaged in your own self. Now, when you are going to define a pie chart about how do you want your day to be, how to understand the level of psychological risk which when we're trying to change the behavioral pattern, you have to understand your capacity to endure the intensity of the psychological risk that you can take, that you can bear at that moment. Because to bear the intensity of the psychological risk is also like going to a gym where you build your muscle of arms, legs, whatever, or stomach or wherever. But similarly, in psychology also, we build our muscle to take more and more risks as we allow our capacity to grow, to take up the more intensity of rejection, failure, etc. The more intensity of failure and rejection that we can take up, our psychological risk capacity grows. And because it grows, then we can structure our daily time according to the risk that we are willing to take. Did that answer my question, Satya? Did that answer your question, Satya? Hello?
Yeah, he's written, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. 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 Thank you. Any more questions? Any more questions?
There are no more questions.
Okay. Okay. Then
So,
thank you. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you, Akhilesh, again for such a wonderful, short and sweet presentation. It was a very, very interesting topic. I mean, this aspects of time I was not knowing, and I think many of us would not be knowing about this. So it was a good eye opener for us.
There is one request that I want to make is that please make individual time structures as is and as you would like them to be, and work on 5 behaviors that you would want to see and change, and evaluate yourself. It's a self-appraisal tool that around time that we all need so desperately in such a hustle, in a world that is so full of hustle, where we have to do multiple things at the same time. Everyone wants to become a multitasker. Everyone wants to become, a juggler who's juggling 5 balls at the same time. If we really want to do that, then we need this tool. And not only we need this tool, we have to make this tool work for us. Yeah. And so it's my sincere request that please work on these time structure pies. If you are willing to share, there is no compulsion, but if you are willing to share your time structure pies and the behavioral shifts that you intended to make after that, I'm willing to go through. You can have my email ID and send it to on my email IDs as well, and then we can work accordingly. I'm open to that, and there will be never any issue with respect to having more discussion, more in-depth discussion around these topics, which will help you in becoming a better professional.
So should we put your email ID on the chat?
Yeah, I will put it on the chat. So this is my email ID, akhilesh@transformation.com. And anybody, I would like to see as many time structure pie charts as possible. So hope everybody liked this presentation, because I know it is very much needed, and it gives time a completely different perspective that we usually do not look it from. We do not usually look time from this lens generally. Okay, thank you very much for sparing your time again, and hoping that you all get rewarded fruitfully through this 1.5 hour session. And my best wishes for everyone for great success in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Akhilesh. Thank you so much once again, and thank you everyone for attending the session of Gyan Jyoti, and hope to see you next month again. Thank you. Bye-bye.